For decades, one door inside Windsor Castle remained firmly closed, not to the public but to senior royals themselves. It was a private suite so personal, so symbolically guarded, that even Queen Camilla was quietly denied access for years. And then, without warning, everything changed. Catherine moved in. No announcement. No explanation. Just a silent shift that sent shockwaves through the monarchy and reignited tensions long buried beneath protocol and politeness. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The moment word began to circulate, disbelief settled over the palace like a held breath. The Queen's private Windsor suite was never just a residence. It was a living symbol of trust, legacy, and emotional inheritance. It was the place where decisions were softened by memory, where history lingered in the quiet, and where access was granted not by rank but by an unspoken bond. Catherine's sudden move into that space landed with a force that could not be disguised by silence. Senior royals exchanged glances without speaking. Advisors asked questions that had no answers. Staff sensed the shift immediately, not because anything visible had changed, but because everything beneath the surface had. The shock was not rooted in Catherine herself, but in the speed and secrecy of the decision. There were no briefings, no carefully worded statements, no attempt to prepare the institution for what this move implied. In a family where symbolism is currency, silence is never neutral. It felt deliberate, almost defiant, as though the monarchy was daring itself to acknowledge what had just occurred. Catherine's presence inside the suite suggested continuity to some, rupture to others, and to everyone watching closely, it raised a single destabilizing question. Why now? Inside royal circles, speculation ignited immediately. Was this a practical decision dressed as tradition, or a deeply personal endorsement made permanent? The absence of explanation invited interpretation, and interpretation invited tension. Those who understood the suite's meaning felt the emotional weight press in all at once. This was not simply about space, it was about succession of trust, about who was deemed worthy to inhabit the Queen's most guarded inner world. For years, the suite had stood untouched, preserved as a quiet boundary. Its opening signaled not generosity, but choice. Palace insiders reacted with careful restraint, but the unease was unmistakable. Some saw Catherine's move as inevitable, the culmination of years of discretion and loyalty finally recognized. Others felt the sting of exclusion sharpen, particularly because of who had been denied for so long. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Every corridor conversation, every pause before a sentence, carried the awareness that something profound had shifted without permission or preparation. What made the moment heavier still was the emotional gravity of the space itself. This suite was not associated with celebration, but with reflection, resilience, and the private burdens of the crown. To step into it was to be entrusted with more than comfort, it was to inherit responsibility that could not be publicly acknowledged. Catherine did not just move into a room. She stepped into a legacy that had been guarded by absence as much as by presence. And that legacy, once transferred, could not be reclaimed without consequence. But to understand why this move matters so deeply, you have to understand why that suite was never meant to change hands at all. This wasn't just a residence. It was a sanctuary. A private Windsor suite tied not to rank, but to trust. For generations, it symbolized emotional closeness to the monarch rather than ceremonial status. Access was never guaranteed, and denial was never accidental. Which is why one question echoes louder than all others. Why was Camilla kept out while Catherine was quietly welcomed in? The answer begins long before the present moment, rooted in a tradition older than public memory. The Queen's private Windsor suite was never meant to be inherited like a title or awarded as a privilege. It existed outside the rigid architecture of hierarchy, reserved for those whose presence offered comfort rather than complication. In royal life, where appearances are managed and words are measured, This suite represented something rare, unfiltered trust. Those allowed inside were not merely senior, they were steady. Not ambitious, but grounding. The space became a mirror of the monarch's inner circle, revealing who was relied upon when the crown felt heaviest. Historically, access reflected relationship, not recognition. Titles could be granted, honors bestowed, but this suite remained governed by instinct and emotional certainty. It was why the door stayed closed for so many years. After the Queen's later life, the space was preserved almost untouched, not out of nostalgia, but out of caution. To open it again required more than need, it required absolute confidence in the person stepping inside. The monarchy understood that once the suite changed hands, its meaning would change with it. Unspoken rules surrounded it, enforced not by decree but by silence. No one asked outright to reside there, because to ask was to misunderstand its purpose. And no one was explicitly refused, because refusal would have acknowledged a boundary meant to remain invisible. Denial functioned quietly, through delay, through alternative arrangements, through gentle redirection. Over time, absence became its own message. Those who were not invited understood where they stood, even if the reason was never spoken aloud. This context reshapes everything. Camilla's exclusion was not about punishment or public perception, it was about the nature of the bond the suite required. Her proximity to the throne did not translate into admission, because proximity was never the measure. The suite demanded something more elusive, a sense of emotional alignment with the monarch's private self. That alignment could not be manufactured, accelerated, or negotiated. It either existed or it didn't. Catherine's arrival reframed the entire legacy of the space. Her welcome suggested not a change in rules, but a recognition that the conditions had finally been met. Years of quiet presence, consistency under pressure, and restraint in moments of opportunity had accumulated into trust strong enough to reopen a door that had resisted every other claim. The move was not sudden in meaning, only in execution. It revealed a decision long settled internally, now made visible through action rather than explanation. Understanding this history makes the contrast unmistakable. One woman waited in proximity without entry, another was invited without announcement. The difference lies not in status, but in what the suite has always guarded most fiercely: emotional certainty over ceremonial rank. And once that history is understood, the contrast between who was denied and who was chosen becomes impossible to ignore. For years, Camilla waited in proximity, but never inclusion. Present, respected, but always just outside that final inner circle. Requests were never officially refused, just endlessly delayed, and in royal life, delay often speaks louder than denial. As Catherine settled into the Queen's private space, old wounds reopened, and a painful truth resurfaced: some doors were never meant to open for Camilla. Camilla's relationship with the suite existed in a strange limbo, defined by nearness without access. She was aware of it. Everyone was. The space was discussed in hushed, careful language, always as something preserved, something not yet appropriate to address. Each time circumstances shifted, expectations quietly rose, only to be met with silence. No formal rejection ever arrived, because none was necessary. In the monarchy, silence is often the most efficient form of control. It avoids confrontation while delivering a message that cannot be appealed. The emotional consequences of that prolonged exclusion accumulated slowly. Outwardly, Camilla maintained composure, fulfilling her role with discipline and restraint. Inwardly, the absence lingered. Being denied entry into that private world reinforced an invisible ceiling, an understanding that respect did not always translate into trust. The palace never acknowledged this tension, but it shaped how Camilla was perceived behind the scenes. She was included, yet contained. Present, yet peripheral to the most intimate sphere of royal life. Over time, that boundary influenced everything. It affected how closely she was consulted, how much emotional authority she was afforded, how firmly she could position herself when matters turned personal rather than procedural. The suite became a quiet marker of limitation, not spoken of, not debated, but understood. And understanding in this context carried its own weight. It reminded Camilla that no amount of endurance could rewrite a judgment already made in silence. When Catherine moved in, the contrast was immediate and sharp. What had been delayed for years was suddenly resolved without ceremony. No gradual transition. No prolonged evaluation. Just acceptance. That shift reignited tensions Camilla had learned to keep buried. The palace did not acknowledge the disparity, but it did not need to. The message was unmistakable. What Camilla had waited for patiently was not being withheld out of timing, it was being withheld out of principle. The quiet humiliation was not public, but it was deeply felt. There were no headlines to absorb the blow, no statements to counterbalance the sting. Instead, the impact unfolded privately, in the subtle recalibration of relationships and glances that lingered too long. Catherine's presence in the suite was not a personal affront, yet it became an unavoidable reminder of exclusion. It clarified a hierarchy that had never been officially defined, but had always existed. As Catherine settled into the space, the internal tension thickened. Those who had navigated carefully between the two women felt the shift instantly. Conversations grew more cautious. Courtesy took on an edge. The palace, once practiced at managing ambiguity, now faced a reality too stark to soften. The difference between waiting and being chosen had never been more visible. But if Camilla was kept waiting for years, the question shifts: why was Catherine different? Catherine's rise inside the monarchy was never loud, but it was steady, deliberate, and deeply personal. While others sought influence, she built trust. While others demanded space, she earned it. Her move into the Queen's private Windsor suite wasn't about status, it was about emotional succession. And that distinction explains everything. What defined Catherine's relationship with the Queen was not visibility, but presence. It was shaped in quiet moments, in consistency rather than ceremony, in an ability to listen without agenda and support without spectacle. Over the years, Catherine became someone the Queen could rely on when the weight of the crown pressed hardest, someone who absorbed pressure without reflecting it back as drama. That steadiness mattered more than any title. In a family where attention often translates into leverage, Catherine offered something rarer: calm continuity. Her discretion became her currency. She did not test boundaries or seek shortcuts into influence. Instead, she respected the rhythms of the institution, understanding that trust inside the monarchy is accumulated slowly, often invisibly. Catherine learned when to speak and, more importantly, when not to. She carried herself with emotional intelligence that reassured rather than unsettled. Over time, that reliability transformed into confidence, private, unspoken, but deeply felt by the Queen herself. This is why trust outweighed title when the decision was made. The Queen's private Windsor suite was not a reward for service. It was a responsibility bestowed only on someone capable of holding the monarchy's most personal space without reshaping it. Catherine's entry into that suite signaled a belief that she would protect its meaning rather than redefine it. It was an acknowledgement that she understood the difference between occupying space and honoring it. Behind closed doors, the Queen's confidence in Catherine had long been apparent, even if never publicly articulated. It showed in the way conversations lingered, in the willingness to share burdens that were never meant for the public record. The suite became a natural extension of that bond of physical expression, of emotional succession. Catherine was not stepping into a role. She was being entrusted with continuity, with the unspoken responsibility of carrying forward the Queen's private legacy in a way that preserved its integrity. The symbolism of that choice rippled outward instantly. Selecting Catherine as a custodian of this space reshaped the internal hierarchy without issuing a single directive. It clarified where emotional authority now resided. Those watching closely understood the message. Influence rooted in trust would outlast influence rooted in position. The monarchy had always functioned on such signals, subtle yet decisive, and this was one of the clearest yet. Catherine's move did not elevate her publicly, but it recalibrated the balance behind the scenes. It confirmed her as a stabilizing force, someone seen not just as a future figurehead, but as a present anchor. That recognition carried weight, and with it came consequences. Because every act of trust within the monarchy inevitably creates distance elsewhere, even when no one intends it. And yet, even a decision rooted in trust carries consequences, especially for those left watching from the outside. Catherine's move did more than change addresses, it shifted alliances. Quietly, carefully, the palace began to divide. Some saw continuity, others saw favoritism. And for those already nursing old grievances, this moment felt like confirmation of everything they feared. One suite, two women, and a royal household suddenly forced to choose sides without ever saying so aloud. The reaction was not explosive, but that made it more dangerous. Senior royals interpreted the move through the lens of their own insecurities and expectations. To some, Catherine's relocation felt like a natural extension of trust, a stabilizing signal in uncertain times. To others, it felt like a line had been crossed without consultation, an intimacy granted too freely and too quietly. No one argued openly, but positions hardened in silence. In a family where words are measured, silence often becomes the battlefield. Staff sensed the shift almost immediately. The palace has always operated on instinct as much as instruction, and instincts were suddenly on edge. Conversations became shorter. Schedules subtly adjusted. Familiar routines carried an unfamiliar tension, as if everyone understood that something delicate had been disturbed. Catherine was treated with the same courtesy as always, but the energy around her changed, more watchful, more careful. Camilla, meanwhile, was met with an exaggerated politeness that only highlighted the distance growing beneath it. The emotional space between the two women widened without a single confrontation. There were no scenes, no accusations, no visible strain. Instead, there was absence, less overlap, fewer shared moments, a quiet recalibration that spoke volumes. Catherine did not seek this divide, but she could not escape it either. Her presence in the suite made her a symbol, whether she wanted that role or not. And symbols attract projection. Publicly, unity remained intact. Smiles were maintained. Appearances continued. The monarchy performed cohesion with practiced ease. But privately, resentment simmered. Those who felt overlooked or displaced clung to the belief that this decision represented a deeper imbalance. Small gestures were suddenly scrutinized. Minor scheduling choices felt loaded. What once passed unnoticed now carried meaning, magnifying tensions that had existed for years but had never found a focal point. It was striking how such a contained decision could unravel so much. A single move, handled without explanation, began to expose fault lines that had been carefully managed for decades. The palace had always relied on gradualism, on easing transitions so no one felt abruptly displaced. This time, the shift was too clean, too decisive. And decisiveness, in a family built on careful ambiguity, can feel threatening. The risk was no longer just emotional discomfort, it was permanence. Once alliances subtly realign, they rarely return to their previous state. Trust, once questioned, does not fully recover. Catherine understood this instinctively, even as she remained outwardly composed. Camilla felt it too, though it was never acknowledged. The household existed in a state of controlled tension, aware that any further change, however small, could push strain into fracture. And beneath all of it lay a deeper unease. Because if one private decision could alter relationships this profoundly, then the real danger was not what had already happened, but what this shift suggested about what was coming next. But beneath the tension lay something even more dangerous, a question about the future itself. Royal spaces speak when people won't. And this one spoke volumes. Catherine's presence inside the Queen's private Windsor suite wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. A message about continuity, about who carries the emotional torch forward, and perhaps about who never truly would. The monarchy doesn't announce succession in words, it reveals it in moments like this. The suite has always functioned as a quiet language of inheritance, communicating meaning without declaration. By stepping into it, Catherine was placed not merely in proximity to legacy, but within its living core. This was emotional succession, not constitutional order, a passing of trust rather than a transfer of title. The monarchy has long understood that the most consequential decisions are signalled through access, not announcements. And this move carried the unmistakable weight of long-term intention. It suggested planning that extended beyond the present moment, beyond immediate optics, toward a future shaped by stability rather than spectacle. What this move implied about long-term royal planning unsettled those paying closest attention. It hinted that continuity was being secured quietly, with care taken to ensure that the institution's emotional centre remained intact through transition. Catherine's presence spoke to preparedness, to an understanding that the monarchy's endurance depends as much on temperament as it does on protocol. It was an acknowledgement that leadership is sustained not only by ceremony, but by the capacity to hold private burdens without turning them into public crises. The contrast between ceremonial rank and private trust could not have been sharper. Titles command respect, but trust commands responsibility. Catherine's placement inside the suite underscored which of the two mattered most in moments that define direction. It exposed a hierarchy that operates beneath formal structures, where emotional reliability outweighs positional authority. This contrast reshaped perception instantly, reframing how influence is understood within the palace and beyond it. Symbolism like this does not remain contained. It shapes public interpretation, even when details remain unspoken. Observers sensed the significance intuitively, recognizing that something fundamental had shifted without being told exactly what. The monarchy relies on this intuition, on the ability of symbolism to convey truth while preserving discretion. Catherine's move crystallized that truth in a way no statement ever could, anchoring perception around continuity and quiet competence. What made the moment feel irreversible was its simplicity. There was no ceremony to undo, no speech to reinterpret. The action stood on its own, final and complete. Once the suite changed hands, its meaning followed, altered by the presence now entrusted with it. Reversing such a decision would require more than logistics, it would demand a retraction of confidence, something the monarchy rarely admits to. That permanence lent the moment a gravity that could not be softened by time. With that gravity came unease. Not panic, but awareness. A recognition that this signal set expectations, narrowed options, and invited scrutiny of what would follow. If this was the message being sent now, quietly and deliberately, then it raised questions about what other signals were being prepared, what other shifts were already underway beyond view. The palace thrives on control, but control depends on foresight, and foresight often reveals itself through choices like this, choices that speak before anyone else does. And just when it seemed the message was clear, another layer of complexity emerged. Publicly, nothing happened. No statement, no headlines, just business as usual. But behind palace walls, the truth felt far heavier. The contrast between silence and significance became impossible to ignore. Catherine had moved into a space denied to Camilla for years, and the monarchy hoped no one would ask why. The decision to say nothing was not accidental, it was strategy. The palace has always understood that attention gives shape to narrative, and by offering none, it aimed to let the moment pass unexamined. No briefings were issued, no clarifications offered. Schedules continued uninterrupted, appearances remained polished, and official messaging stayed carefully neutral. On the surface, it worked. The absence of acknowledgement created the illusion that nothing of consequence had occurred. But silence, especially at this level, has a way of drawing focus rather than deflecting it. Behind the scenes, efforts to minimize attention were meticulous. Access was tightly controlled. Language was chosen with surgical care. Those who knew were reminded implicitly, never explicitly, of the importance of discretion. The palace relied on its oldest instinct: if you don't name it, it cannot be challenged. Yet this instinct underestimated one thing. Observers did not need confirmation to sense significance. The lack of explanation became the story. Curiosity began to grow in the margins. Royal watchers noticed subtle changes in movement, in proximity, in who occupied which spaces and when. Patterns emerged where none had existed before. Questions circulated quietly, then more insistently. Why now? Why Catherine? Why after so many years of refusal? The palace's refusal to engage did not suppress these questions, it sharpened them. Speculation thrives where information is withheld, and this moment offered fertile ground. The risk quickly became one of perception overtaking intention. Whatever the internal reasoning behind Catherine's move, the absence of narrative allowed others to supply their own. Favoritism. Repositioning. Quiet sidelining. None of these interpretations needed to be accurate to be influential. In the modern age, perception shapes reality faster than truth can catch up. The palace, built on control of image, suddenly found itself reacting to an image it had chosen not to define. Secrecy intensified everything. Instead of preserving dignity, it created distance. Instead of maintaining authority, it invited doubt. The more the palace attempted to treat the move as inconsequential, the more consequential it appeared. Silence began to look less like restraint and more like avoidance. And avoidance, when noticed, erodes trust. The monarchy depends on mystique, but mystique requires balance. When secrecy tilts too far, it stops protecting the institution and starts exposing it. This fragile balance between image and reality strained under the weight of unspoken meaning. Catherine's move existed now in two parallel worlds. The official one, where it did not exist at all, and the private one, where it had already altered relationships, expectations, and assumptions. Holding those two realities apart required constant effort, and cracks were beginning to show. Every unanswered question became louder. Every neutral gesture felt loaded. The palace had gambled that silence would keep the story contained. Instead, it ensured that when the story did surface, it would arrive sharpened by omission and charged with implication. Because when meaning is withheld, it does not disappear, it accumulates. Because silence doesn't erase meaning, it amplifies it. Some moments redefine everything without ever making a sound. Catherine's move into the Queen's private Windsor suite did exactly that. It changed relationships, it clarified loyalties, and it drew a line between acceptance and exclusion that may never fade. The question now isn't what happened, but what it means from here on out. The impact on Catherine's role was immediate, even if it was never formally acknowledged. She was no longer simply trusted, she was positioned. Her presence inside that private space recalibrated how her influence was understood, transforming quiet reliability into undeniable authority. Without requesting it, she became a reference point, someone whose judgment carried new weight because it had been tested where ceremony could not reach. This shift did not elevate her publicly, but it anchored her privately, and in a monarchy shaped by unseen forces, that distinction is everything. Camilla's position, by contrast, changed in ways that were felt more than stated. The move did not erase her standing, but it reframed it. Proximity without access became a permanent marker, one that subtly narrowed the room in which she could operate. What had once been ambiguity hardened into definition. The denial, long softened by delay, was now clarified by comparison. That clarity altered dynamics irreversibly, creating an emotional distance that could not be bridged by appearances or protocol. The emotional consequences cut deepest because they offered no remedy. There was no apology to issue, no decision to reverse without compounding damage. What was done had settled into place, carrying with it the quiet ache of finality. Relationships adjusted not through confrontation, but through acceptance, an acceptance that something essential had shifted beyond negotiation. In such moments, the monarchy reveals its most human truth, that power is often exercised not through command, but through choice. Trust reshaped the hierarchy in a way titles never could. The old assumptions about who stood closest, who mattered most in moments of vulnerability, were quietly rewritten. This was not a coup, but a realignment, driven by confidence rather than ambition. Catherine's role emerged as a stabilizing constant, while others recalculated their footing around her. The hierarchy became less about rank and more about reliability, less about history and more about temperament. The permanence of symbolic decisions like this lies in their subtlety. Because they are not debated, they are rarely undone. Symbols endure precisely because they resist argument. Catherine's move into the suite created a new normal that will not be announced, only lived. Over time, it will be referenced without explanation, accepted without question, and remembered without documentation. That is how the monarchy preserves its most consequential choices, by letting them become background truth. This moment will be remembered quietly, but deeply. Not as a headline, but as a turning point felt by those who understand the language of space, access, and trust. It will echo in future decisions, in who is consulted, in who is relied upon when the stakes are highest. The soundless nature of the shift does not diminish its force. It amplifies it, embedding it into the institution's memory where it cannot be disputed. And as the dust settles, one final question remains unanswered. If Catherine could move into the Queen's most private space, denied to Camilla for years, then what else is changing behind closed doors? The monarchy insists nothing is different, but actions tell a different story. And sometimes, the loudest truths are the ones spoken without words. The tension that now lingers between Catherine and Camilla does not announce itself openly, yet it permeates everything. It exists in pauses that last a beat too long, in conversations that feel carefully managed rather than natural, in the subtle awareness that something has shifted and cannot be shifted back. Neither woman needs to confront the other for the divide to be real. The divide lives in the knowledge that access was granted to one and withheld from the other, and that knowledge has a permanence words cannot dilute. What this signals about future influence within the monarchy is impossible to ignore. Influence has never flowed solely from titles or public roles. It flows from proximity to trust, from being present when decisions are formed rather than merely announced. Catherine's move suggests that the center of gravity is quietly relocating. It implies that future direction may be shaped not by who speaks the loudest, but by who is closest when it matters most. For those watching carefully, this is not a temporary adjustment, it is a preview. Unity, already delicate, now feels conditional. The monarchy has survived by presenting a seamless front, even when private realities were fractured. But fractures grow under pressure, and this moment has introduced a new kind of strain. Not scandal, but imbalance, the kind that makes cooperation feel performative rather than instinctive. The danger is not immediate collapse, but gradual erosion, a slow thinning of shared purpose that leaves the institution vulnerable in ways no statement can repair. This is why symbolic decisions matter more than official words. Statements can be revised, clarified, or forgotten. Symbols endure. They are absorbed into memory, referenced without explanation, and understood without confirmation. Catherine's presence in that private space carries meaning that no denial can erase. It reshapes how favor is perceived, how loyalty is measured, and how future choices will be interpreted. In a system built on tradition, symbols do the work that declarations never could. The mystery surrounding royal favour has only deepened. Why one person is chosen over another is rarely explained, and perhaps never fully understood. Favour is not always a reward. Sometimes it is a recognition of temperament, of endurance, of emotional compatibility with power itself. That mystery keeps the monarchy opaque, but it also keeps it fragile. When the reasons remain hidden, speculation fills the gap, and speculation has consequences. As this chapter closes, nothing feels resolved. Questions remain suspended, unanswered by design. Catherine's role feels solidified yet unfinished. Camilla's position feels secure yet constrained. The institution moves forward, but not without the echo of what has changed. The silence surrounding it all is not calming, it is charged, heavy with implication. Because in the royal family, the most powerful decisions are rarely explained, only revealed. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.